Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and folks that like to invest in the companies that surround that world. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live. It is great to be with you. Today, we are having a beautiful day here in Northeast Florida. Sunny, windy. We've had a couple of stormy days, but it's really beautiful day today. I want to give a big shout out to Brizzy Boy. Welcome aboard, Brizzy. It's your first time making it, but you're over in Aussie land, so I'm grateful to have you here. Bush Dog Scrapper, welcome aboard. Electronic Scrapper, Urban Prospector, great to have you all here. Roger at CU Scrapping and JR Cat, awesome to have everybody here. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to be talking about gold versus platinum. This should be kind of interesting. Of course, we're going to have our safety note. We're going to focus in on nickel a bit today. We got our business note of the day, of course. And then we're going to revisit two stocks that we talked about back in January. They've just been updated, so we're going to see how they're doing as well. And then I had a really interesting comment come through during the week, and I want to share that with everybody. Assuming we don't run out of time, we've only got an hour to try to shove all this stuff in there. So we will see how it plays out. GCR, welcome. Great to have you here. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to jump right over to our gold and platinum discussion. Now, you all know that I use APMEX when I talk about these. I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get any advertising from them. I use them when I buy and sell physical gold and silver. No drama, easy to work with, just the kind of thing you want when you're handling physical gold and silver. There are plenty of other places that folks trade on. So this is just the one that I've used a lot. I also use Kitco, and we'll see them in a minute as well. So we look at gold, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at gold a little bit. We're going to look at platinum a little bit, and then we're going to look at something along the lines of how there's the gold to silver ratio? Well, what if we looked at it from a gold to platinum ratio? Would there be anything meaningful there to help us? All right, so first we see that gold, this is the 5-year look. Let's just go right back here to the 24-hour. We didn't see a whole lot of change in the last 24 hours, but, it's the weekend, so no great surprises there. On the 3-day, we see that gold is up about 0.1%. And for the week, we see gold is up 0.3%. These are not, we're not talking big numbers here. Gold's over 2,000. It's a great place for gold to be right now. We love seeing gold over 2,000. Here's the 1 month. The gold is up 0.65. The 3 month, it's up 9.3. So we can see, here's back in January. Here's where we are up here. So we love seeing gold above 2,000. Here's the 1-year look. And we see, gold took this big dip and then it climbed back up again. So we're loving gold at 2,000. All right, well, let's now go back here to 24-hour. Let's go look at platinum. Now, the reason why I want to talk about gold and platinum, Scrapping Irish, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you here. So, and Chuck, hey, Chuck, great. I saw you come in here. Great to see you here. So let's talk about gold versus platinum. Gold is is a safe haven metal, right? Folks go to gold when they get nervous about what's happening in the stock and bond market, in the monies market. They go to gold as a defensive kind of strategy. So it's a precious metal, and we know that silver is sometimes thought of as the lesser gold. People go to silver when they can't afford gold, but it's still a precious metal. But silver is also an industrial metal, so folks will go to silver sometimes. Platinum is also considered a precious metal. It's also used in jewelry. It also can be sold in bars and rounds as a quote unquote investment, but it's not as popular as an investment metal the way gold and silver is. Platinum, of course, has very strong industrial kind of uses, catalytic converters, other catalyst type activities in the petroleum industry and such. So we see platinum more as a industrial metal, but it still is, a precious metal, right? So when we look at the platinum prices, we see here for the 24-hour period, it's down 0.45%. Again, not a huge change. If we look at the 3-day, we see not much, right? It's down. We see that there was a lot of change here, right? It was flat for a while. It went down, and then it's been digging its way back up again. If you look at the 1 week, it's down 4.28%, so relatively steady decline going down there. Now, if you look at the month, though, it's up 8%. And if you look at the 3-month, well, you don't have a whole lot of change at the end-to-end numbers, but you had this big dip in the middle. And then if we look at the 1 year, we see that it's up 9% and some change. If we look at the 5 year, it's up 17% and some change. So, this is kind of interesting. And what I was messing around with this week was looking at, charting out like the gold, like they do with gold to silver ratio. So here you see the gold to silver ratio, and they chart it out. You can see how much silver you need in order to buy an ounce of gold, and how you get these spikes and how these numbers play out. And but what I wanted to do was look at this from gold to platinum. So I went in and I plotted out these numbers. So what you can see is I took these same periods, 24-hour, 3-day, 1 week, 1 month, 3 month, 1 year, and 5 year. And I put the change number. So this is how much gold changed in the 3-day. It was up 0.33%. For the week, it was up about the same. For the month, it was up 0.65%. For the 3-month, it was up 9.3%. And I updated these numbers just a little while ago. Of course, they've changed from what we were just looking at a little bit, but they're pretty close, right? Then I did the same thing for platinum. Now, remember, these are not the prices. These are how much the prices changed in that period. So then I took gold divided by platinum to get a gold to platinum ratio. And then we have the gold to silver ratio. And then I plotted those out as a line chart to get an idea of, just how they look relative to each other. Now, what's really interesting here is, and let's see if I can get this a little bit bigger for y'all. And then, oops, that was not exactly what I meant to do. I meant to do this. There we go. That's a little better for y'all. So here's what I think was really interesting. This gray line right here, this is the gold platinum ratio. And what you can see is, for the short term, there isn't a whole lot of change going on, but then we see this big dip that occurs at the, when you look at the 3-month difference. But if you look at the gold to silver ratio, which is this kind of gold colored line here, you see that this gold to silver ratio, is relatively flat compared to the gold to platinum ratio. This really reinforces the notion, the concept that gold and silver are treated much more like investment metals, precious investment metals, whereas platinum is treated more as an industrial metal, because platinum had this big change where the gold to silver ratio is relatively consistent between the two. Hey, Simon Kelpmaster, great to have you here. So I'm going to play around with this some more, take some different twists to it, just purely out of curiosity. The Geek Shark can't help but mess around with this kind of stuff. Um, I don't know if any of you buy platinum as a physical metal, platinum rounds or platinum bars. I don't. I never saw them as being, one, physically attractive, but two, it was always in the back of my mind, there was always this idea that, I can take a gold round or a gold bar and I can go down to the pawn shop or the coin dealer or to AppMex or Kitco and I can sell it. And there's no drama, there's no fuss, it's done. I just, with platinum, God, it's just like, would it really work the same way, or would there be, would you still be able to sell it the same way, say at a local coin shop or a pawn shop, wherever you would sell locally? I don't know, but I don't do I don't do platinum, so I have bought gold and silver before. I keep a certain amount of physical gold and silver as an investment, just no hard platinum. Simon says he sells it in capacitors. Okay, yeah, all right. JR Cat's going, yeah, gold is more known. Yeah, it just is. Brizzy Boy says, no, I don't do premium on platinum is way higher than silver. Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't looked at that, Brizzy. That's something I might want to go take a look at. Is what are the premiums on platinum? I wonder why the premium would be so much higher. Maybe because they don't sell as much of it, so they need to put more of a premium on it in order to cover their expenses. They being people like AppMex and the people that buy and sell this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's a good one. Simon, yeah, platinum is in wire precision potentiometers, avionics. Oh yeah, platinum has a lot of strong industrial uses. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that platinum isn't, a necessary metal. It's very necessary in a lot of our industries. I just don't see it as an investment type metal. Yeah. All right. Well, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at this. I'm not planning on doing any platinum investment. Sounds to me like most of you don't get into platinum investment either. But it was an interesting mental exercise for the week. All right, so now let's talk about our safety note for the week. The doctor will see you now, or the scrap doctor will. All right, so gloves. We've talked about gloves before, but one of the things that I wanted to re-emphasize with gloves, and this is one of the things about safety. I learned this in the Navy. You constantly have to repeat and reinforce safety because we get careless. We can't help it. We're humans. We just do it. We get careless, right? And so it's easy to forget about things like your gloves. But what I really want to touch on today is the right kind of glove. This glove, very important for handling chemicals, things that you don't want to be absorbing through the skin of a bare hand, or that could stain your hands various colors. I know that there are some people that almost take that as a badge of honor, to have their hands or their fingers stained by working on various metals and stuff. A long time ago, when I was in high school, I used to do a lot of spelunking, caving. And we had, you can see one of them up there on my, back on my bookshelf, the miner's lamps. And we all took turns maintaining the equipment in our club. And one time I was cleaning the lamps, and I didn't realize the chemical reaction that was going to take place with the um, carbide that was in the that we used as the fuel for the miner's lamp, and whatever cleaning material I was using. And anyway, my fingernails all turned black. Hey, Raphael, great to see you here, man. And it was really funny because there was this lady, this gal, one of my classmates, and she agreed to go out on a date with me because she just thought it was really interesting that a guy had painted his fingernails black. And so when I explained to her why my fingernails were black, she didn't go out with me anymore. So I guess, what's that say about me? But the important thing is, wear the right kind of glove for the right purpose. So if you're going to be working with cleaning agents, chemicals, things of that nature, you want to have, something like a nitrile glove. There are some chemicals that will react with certain types of plastic gloves. So, between latex and nitrile and those kind of gloves, make sure that you're careful understanding what those reactions could possibly be. But the other kind of, the other thing is, you've all seen me with these gloves on here, right? These are my heavy duty work gloves. So when I'm picking up heavy, sharp kind of stuff that can easily cut me or tear me up, I'll wear these heavier grade gloves. Now, you don't have a lot of tactile feel with gloves like this. So you don't want to necessarily use these when you're scrapping things, because, when you're taking certain things apart. So that's when you want to use the cloth gloves that have some sort of coating or padding on the front side. And I just got a really great pair of gloves. Unfortunately, I forgot them. I left them at the shop at the Shark Cage. They're called Armor Guys. Really cool gloves. You've seen them in a couple of my videos now. The Mariscals sent them to me. I really like those for when I'm scrapping because they're kind of cut resistant. So I find that where the lime green gloves that I was wearing before with the padding, I could sometimes cut through that material and cut myself. But these Armor Guy gloves, these are great. I have not yet cut through that material while I've been using them. So gloves are important. Make sure you use the right glove for the right purpose. Keep some on hand. And, they're also good for picking up your dog poop if you happen to have a dog. All right. So much for our safety note of the day. Let's see. Raphael says his favorite gloves are Maxi Flexes. Very cool. All righty, Maxi Flexes. There's another recommendation. And Scrapping Irish says, do not use nitrile gloves with nitric acid. They can catch fire. So there's a good addition to the safety note, and goes back to the understanding, when you're using things like acids and stuff, make sure you know what's going to react with that acid. So you don't accidentally, give yourself a problem there. George, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. JR Cat says, don't do the landmines. Yeah. It's funny because that's exactly what I'll tell folks when they show up to do the pest control stuff around the house. I'll tell them, hey guys, I didn't do the landmines yet. And, they'll laugh, and it's like, yeah, no problem. So, and Simon Kelpmaster says, I use various types according to the works. But yeah, there you go. That's exactly what you need to be doing. We in the scrapping industry, we deal with a lot of weird stuff, right? Sometimes we're doing with harsh chemicals. Sometimes we're just doing with sharp objects. So you really want to work to protect things. And we're all going to end up with calluses and, some tough skin, and some people end up with tougher calluses and harder skin than others. But human skin, no matter how tough or callous you get, you are not going to be able to prevent sharp metal, glass, things of that nature from cutting you. gloves can at least give you some protection against that. So whatever we can do to try to prevent our injuries, because injuries slow us down, and injuries, can make us sick, which takes us out of the game. And just anything we can do to keep scrapping. We don't want to get slowed down. All right, well, let's move on now to our industrial metal of the week. So for our industrial metal of the week, we are going to be talking about nickel. I like nickel. It's kind of an interesting metal. It's like, you don't think about it much as a scrapper because it's not like copper where you're going to find things that are copper, right? It's not like aluminum where you're going to find things that are all aluminum. But man, there's a lot of nickel that we run into. Now, okay, I got to take a break here from nickel and make a comment. Yep, Rafael, I know we need to make sure that we pay the scrap gods, but that's why we have Ian. Because Ian, bless his soul, he tends to pay the scrap gods a lot for all of us. All right, so back over to nickel here. Let's dive right in here. So we see that nickel for the 24-hour, not a whole lot of change. It's down about 0.12%. We wouldn't expect to see a huge change. Here's the 30-day nickel spot price. Now, this is the Kitco website. And I like using Kitco when we talk about these industrial metals because Kitco has some good historical charts that we can relate to. So 30-day nickel, we see it is up a little bit here. Here's the 60-day nickel. Yeah, it's down a little bit. And again, not a whole lot of change going on here. I mean, there's a lot of change, but if you look at the end-to-end prices, it hasn't changed a lot. Our 6-month, we saw this nice rise, and then it's dropped off and starting to climb up again here. So, when you see these kind of long-term patterns, this is when I start getting very interested. Look at that's a real nice kind of start to a sinusoidal pattern there. And then when you look at the 1 year, wow, you see this almost a sinusoidal pattern again going on where you dip down and then you come back up and then you're dipping down. And now are we on the beginnings of it coming back up again here? Here's our 5-year nickel. Now overall, this is an upward trend, but we had this really big spike here. I think this is associated, if you look at the timing, this is in 22. So, you've got industries are picking up and China's opening up and, there's a war over in Ukraine. And so you've got a tightening of resources. So, and then things sort of relax and, are kind of getting back into some sense of where things is. So, but let's look at what's going on with the inventory levels, because we all know that inventory levels tend to have a major impact on what goes on with the pricing. So here's the 30-day London Metal Exchange nickel warehouse stock levels, and we see the stock levels are dropping. For scrappers and recyclers, this is a good signal for us because as stock levels decrease, the price should increase. And in the 60-day stock levels, we see that it was stable for a while. Then here's this drop that we saw from the 30-day. Here's the 6-month overall. That's a dropping signal. And then the 1-year London Metal Exchange, again, overall, we see warehouse levels decreasing. And then we have the 5-year. And this is what really gets our attention here. We saw this with the 1 year. We see this, they're just consuming nickel, and it's not bouncing back the way we saw this pickup here. So we see that the inventory levels of nickel are continuing to decrease. And that is going to drive up prices. Now, but where do we find nickel, right? I mean, what do you find out there? What do you got? What do you all find out there in the world of scrap that has nickel in it? This is, it's interesting because you can almost say to yourself, well, if I'm interested in finding some other stuff, some other kind of scrap, knowing where nickel is used, that might help us. Excuse me. So JR Caddy says nickel is like working with sandpaper. It eats your tooling. Yeah. Raphael, it's tricky because us scrappers in most we get nickel plated stuff. Yes, that's right. And that's that's the big thing. It's used as plating in a lot of the industrial material or stuff that we get. So it's not so much that you're going out to look for a nickel something or other, right? And the other thing that I think is interesting is that you have certain types of stainless steel that have nickel, right? The 300 series of stainless steel is a chromium nickel combination with stainless steel and alloy, right? And so, if your yard has an XRF gun, they may pay you differently for certain grades of stainless steel. I think it's interesting that some yards advertise different prices for different grades of stainless steel, but unless they have an XRF gun, how are they going to really be able to say, yeah, it's a 300 series, a 200 series, much less is it a 304 or a 316. So yeah, that's a tough one. JR Cat says electric plate tank residue. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good point. If you know if you have customers who are plating folks, there's a good source. Raphael, I see my T button aren't, so I'm not sure what you mean by that one, man. Explain, please. I'm not quite sure. Rogers, used 20 years ago, a yard I worked at got nickel helmet molds for bicycle helmets. Oh, very cool. That's very interesting. Yeah, JR Cat, Hastelloy and Inconel. Yeah, those are certainly good product. It's in there, right? The challenge that a lot of scrappers will run into, of course, is how do you identify it? I mean, like you kind of know that the heating elements, your heating coils and things like that are going to be heavy nickel kind of things. And so I wonder how many yards out there will buy your heating elements as at a separate price. Do you even get enough heating elements that it makes it worth? I suppose if you got maybe a lot of electric stoves, maybe. This is very interesting. Oh, okay, Raphael, I see what you're saying. The T on your keyboard isn't working too well. Yeah, that's always annoying when one of the letters gets stuck. And one of the things that I was thinking that we have just down the road from me is one of the big aircraft manufacturers, and so I've been trying to get in with them on their scrap. And in the beginning I was thinking, well, because they deal with a lot of aluminum, but they also do engine reworks there. And I'm wondering how many, when they rework turbine blades, what are they doing with, with some of the scrap turbine blades? Now, aircraft repair companies, manufacturing companies, frequently they're very cautious. Andrew Powell, welcome. Great to see you, man. Andrew is from New Zealand. Oops, here we are. Andrew is from New Zealand. So we've got Brizzy Boy from Australia. We've got Andrew from New Zealand. We are reaching around the world. So let's see. Rodri says there are some, but not many. I have saved up almost 50 pounds of Inconel heating elements. Inconel should be a $1.50 a pound scrap, not going to sell as stainless at 35. Okay, good point. There you go. Man, this is there's some good learning here going on with, what to do with, you know, um, with your nickel based alloys. Hey, Grandpa Kevin, great to see you here, man. Um, and if you get enough of it, you put it aside, you keep it separate, because a lot of times with yards, they're not interested in a couple of pounds of these kind of odd. I hate the way that sounds, but these odd kind of things like your heating elements. But if you can come in with a significant load of that stuff, they may be willing to negotiate a decent price for you if your yard is sophisticated enough to do that. Raphael says the last time he did empty his keyboard and grab about 100 grams of. Well, that would explain why the keys might be getting stuck. Usually with my keyboard, it's crumbs from bagels and crackers that cause the problem. So, the other thing that nickel is frequently used in is batteries, right? Nickel cadmium and nickel metal hydride. And so nickel metal hydride, that's cool because that's one of the batteries that is in some of the more greener kind of uses. Nickel cadmium batteries are challenging because of the cadmium. It's really hard to find somebody who will buy nickel cadmium batteries. I'm still working on one possible buyer, but if that falls through, then my nickel cadmium batteries are going to have to end up going to the transfer station. I don't know what they do with it, but they at least keep them. They have a separate bin for them because cadmium is pretty nasty stuff. You don't want the cadmium in the landfill. So you've got nickel that's in those battery sources as well. And I don't know if any of you have found somebody who will buy your nickel cadmiums or your nickel metal hydride batteries, but that's another source, another place that nickel is being used. And if you have any marinas around you, boat repair places, you might want to look at your boat repair yards and see if they have prop shafts and props, because now you've got brass and you've got nickel alloyed, with copper in things like the prop shafts and the props. So that's another possible source to maybe find some nickel-based products. But of course, then you still have to sell it. So you need to have a scrapyard that will buy this material from you that is sophisticated enough to be able to identify it, isolate it, and pay you a reasonable price for it. So nickel, it's interesting. It's out there. It's just, I don't know how many of you have had some, any other good luck separating nickel in your recycling and or nickel alloy or products that that you've been selling out there. I don't know how many of you remember this, but a while back, I received a large bucket load of coins. They were, actually rounds. They were used by a restaurant entertainment place. It was a family-owned version of it was an oyster bar and restaurant that had a lot of games, and they, instead of using real coins in the games, you would buy these little round brass coins, but they were silver colored, and so I think they may have used some sort of nickel based coating on those. But my scrapyard is buying those from me as clean brass, so I can't complain there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm out of other thoughts for where you're going to find nickel. You look for the heating elements. You look for your higher end stainless steels, maybe around the boat yards, or if you know people that do plating, that's a good source as well. So, all righty. Well, our business note for the week um, goes to where you're doing your business. Now, this is like any of these business kind of considerations, we have to think about, we have to understand our local laws, right? So that's step one. You have to understand your local laws. Um, for instance, here in Florida, in order to be certified as a secondary metal recycler and a secondhand dealer, which is what's required for a scrapyard, you have to have a physical location that is in an appropriately zoned area, which is either going to be light industrial or industrial, depending upon the extent of your operation. The reason why this is important is because if you're running a scrapping recycling business and you're doing it out of your home, you risk having your city or your county or your state government people come in and create some real problems for you. Most homes are not zoned in light industrial or industrial places, so you may get in trouble just from a zoning perspective. You could also be opening yourself up for some sort of liability by conducting that business out of your home. So now, if your home is in a open rural area, that's a little bit different, right? So if you own a farm that's out in the sticks, your state or your county might be okay with you doing that. That's why you have to understand what you're allowed to do in the zoning of the place that you're at. Now, don't confuse that with a scrapping hobby, right? If scrapping is just a hobby for you and you maybe make a few bucks on the side, that's entirely different, right? You got a hobby, you're doing your hobby out of your house. And so just like any other hobby that you would do at your house, say for instance, if you're a metal artiste, you're allowed to do whatever hobbies you want. Well, as long as they're not breaking the law kind of hobbies, right? But so as a hobby scrapper, it doesn't matter. You can do it out of your garage. I used to do it out of my garage back when I was doing this as a hobby. When you start doing it as a business, though, you need to understand the physical location requirements for the business that you're doing. Not only because you don't want to get in trouble with the state or the local government, but you also don't want to have somebody come in and sue you. Let's say they come to your house, they drop something off, they get hurt, and now they sue you. And because you're operating your business out of the house, you haven't isolated it. They would do what's called piercing the corporate veil, and now go after all of your personal assets as well as all your business assets. So the more you can separate your business from your person, the better you are. And that's why a separate physical location is very important. Now, the shark cage is where I do all the physical work of scrapping, but I run the office out of my house. I have checked very closely with my accountant, with an attorney, to make sure that I'm okay with what I'm doing. And the bottom line is that as long as I'm not doing any physical manipulation of material here in this office, I'm okay. That's why you don't see me taking things apart anymore while we're talking. When I come up on Scrapping Irish's live stream. In the past, it wasn't unusual for you to see me pulling pins out of connectors or those kind of things. I don't do any of that anymore because between my CPA, who's my accountant, and some legal advice that I've had, they basically said, yeah, don't do any kind of mechanical work at your home office. Keep that strictly administrative activities and you'll be okay. So your physical location, understand what the laws are in your country, your state, your county, your city. Pay attention to those if you're doing it as a business. If you're not doing it as a business and it's just a hobby, it's of less concern, But, if you're messing around with acids and things like that, well, you still got to be a little careful, right? Because, yeah, you don't want to be gassing out the neighbors' dogs or kids and getting in trouble for that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, Rafael. So here in the United States, if you operate your if you operate an office out of your home, you are allowed to deduct a certain amount of your rent and your utilities and such for your taxes. It basically essentially it comes down to the square footage of your office related to the square footage of the home and how much you're allowed to deduct as business expenses. But yes, here in the United States and here in the state of Florida, you are allowed to do that. Got to be careful with it, of course, but it's admissible. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but there's nothing wrong with it. And I would advise anybody that is doing something like that you have a conversation with your accountant or an attorney just to make sure you're doing it all clean. Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything, Irish. It's just vinegar. Just vinegar. I get it. All right. So I promised you that we were going to go back and talk about a couple of companies that we looked at back in January. Now, these companies are in what's called the chemical diversified industries. And they both of them are here in the United States, pretty well known. Let's see. I think they do have international activities as well. So the first one is Air Products. They are, their ticker is APD, and their current yield is 2.4%. So not terribly exciting as far as I'm concerned from a, hey, Ralph, great to have you here, man. Not terribly exciting as far as I'm concerned from a dividend perspective. And it's a huge buy-in price at $286 and change per share. But here's what the folks at the Value Line Investment Survey have to say. And remember, Value Line Investment Survey does not take any advertising whatsoever. So everything that they provide is data and unbiased analysis of that data. So Air Products and Chemicals supplies a variety of atmospheric, which is oxygen and nitrogen, and process, which is hydrogen, helium gases to the energy, industrial, technology, and healthcare customers worldwide. So Air Products is international. So you may have seen their trucks and their products, their big bottles all over the place. Harold, welcome. Great to have you here, man. Welcome from Norway. And we've got Norway, Canada, Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand. Man, we're crisscrossing the world. Ireland, we're crisscrossing the world here. But here's what I wanted to say about Air Products. Air Products shares are worth a look for investors looking to profit from major shifts to more environmentally friendly policies. I'm reading this straight out of the Investment Line survey. Though neutrally ranked for the year ahead, which means they don't expect a lot to change, this industry leader is set up to thrive in a greener future. Total return potential looks attractive on a risk-adjusted basis. So what that means is that you may not get a lot of, this wouldn't be a dividend play. This would be a value play, a growth play. They're going to be around. They're going to do well in the green industries of the future. And so you would buy this anticipating that the share values would go up in the future. And you're also going to get some dividends along the way. The other company that we talked about 6 months ago and is still qualified and still of interest, PPG Industries. They're a global manufacturer of a broad range of performance and industrial coatings. All right. So, think in the simplest sense, think paint, but coatings in general. Now, you see that with both Air Products and PPG, they're qualified as a Div 0. So they've increased their dividends every year for the last 17 years, actually much longer than that. But their dividend is not that great at 1.8%. But it's a little less expensive at $140, almost $141 a share. Now, that's still pretty steep. I do not own shares in either one of these, and I'm not planning on buying shares in any one of these because I'm a dividend investor. But I want to share this information with all of you because some of you might be interested in these, as they are a little bit different in what they do. So let me read what the folks at the survey say about this. In our opinion, investors are placing too much emphasis on PPG's dividend. Interesting. Certainly, PPG is a dividend aristocrat and deserves credit for elevating its disbursement every year for 50 consecutive years. It's not that high of a dividend at 1.8%, but 50 years of raising their dividends. Wow. This is nothing to sneeze at, but the yield is below average and has been for many years. The typical money market fund yields much better than this without the associated risk inherent in owning a stock. So there is some advantage. PPG is one of those industries that's going to be around for a long time. It's not going anywhere. Coatings are necessary for everything from vehicles, homes, airplanes, ships, industrial equipment and such. But this is not necessarily a stock that you want to invest in. But it's here because it's not my place to tell you what you should or should not invest in. I just try to bring this information to all of you so that you can have some choices as you look at what you might do with your investment dollars if you're interested in investing. So this is the dividend per share for Air Products in the blue and PPG in the red. Air Products is paying you quite a bit more. Their dividend was, almost twice that of PPG, but the buy-in is much more expensive. I think it's pretty safe to say that both these companies are going to be around for a long time. They're both necessary industries. So, hey, Cruiser Mac, great to have you here, man. Scrap It All, great to see you here. So I don't see either one of these companies going away anytime soon. If you are interested in the chemical type companies, these might be some plays for you. Of course, I'm always happy to answer more questions if you want to email me about these companies. And for my Patreon members, if you are interested in me diving into any of these companies with a little more detail, or if you have other companies that you're interested in, you can always shoot me an email. And if it is reviewed in the Investment Line survey, I will be happy to share information with you to help you with your investment decisions. This week, by the way, the industries that were evaluated were the recreational industry. So that's companies like Brunswick, Carnival, Harley Davidson, IMAX, Peloton, Polaris, Pool Corp, SeaWorld. And then we also did the entertainment industry, which, that's AMC and Disney and Fox and Lion and Netflix and Sirius XM and such. And then we had the hotel and gaming industry. We also did publishing industry, advertising industry, petroleum producing industry, the oil field services equipment companies, the chemical diversified, which we just talked about, and then public-private equity. So if any of those industries are of interest to you, reach out and let me know, and I'll be happy to share some more information with you. The other thing that I want to throw out here for this discussion is they also do, Investment Line survey folks, they have this document that comes along every week as well. Selections, opinions, a discussion of the economic outlook, what's driving, the things that are going on. And what I really think is interesting is in the back here, they have this industry price performance for the last 6 weeks. So they talk about the 7 best and the 7 worst performing industries out there. So the 7 best performing industries for the last 6 weeks were precious metals, and that makes sense, right? Because we know that people were going into gold and silver, so we would expect those industries to do well. Home building, which was up, oh, by the way, precious metals was up 21.3%. Home building, which was up 8.4%. The entertainment technology, which was up 6.1%. Electric utilities in the central U.S. and the eastern U.S., which were up 5%. Metals and mining, which was up 4.8%, kind of goes along with the precious metals, but copper and aluminum are getting a lot of attention, so we would expect metals and mining to be a good performer. And the electric utilities out west were up 4.2%. So no surprises there, I think, with the best performing industries. The worst performing industries, no Urban Prospector, no Budweiser Review. So the 7 worst performing industries, banking industry, which was down 24%. The banking, they separated banking Midwest, which was down 20%. Oil field services, which are down 15%. Heavy truck equipment down 14.1%. Now, I thought this was interesting because you would think that with the mining industry, with metals and mining being up as much as it is, you would think that heavy truck and equipment would be up as well. So I wonder why heavy truck and equipment was down, in the 7 worst performing industries at this point. Interesting. The thrift industry. So, that's the, I don't know if you have those internationally, but here in the U.S., we have these payday loan companies and the thrift banks and stuff like that. We have the automotive industry, which was down 11.2%, and metal fabricating industry, which was down 11%. So, of those worst performing industries, I think what's interesting to me is that the heavy truck and equipment industry was down. I don't know. What do you all think? Should that have been up a little higher? I mean, the numbers are what the numbers are. You can't argue with that. But I just thought that was interesting. All right. I want to share with you something that I think all of us can relate to. It was a comment that I got from one of my viewers. And let's bring this up. So I got this comment 3 days ago from Tower Ranch. They said, do you have any advice on finding a good scrap yard as well as finding all the curbside stuff? So this comment was attached to one of my street scrapping videos that I had up. Loan sharks. Was that on purpose, Cruiser? Now, I provided a very detailed response to this comment, what I went back to them and I was explaining to them that for me, the process of finding a good scrapyard took some time because we have a number of scrapyards here locally. So the first thing I had to do was identify all the potential yards in this area. And then I would start going to those yards and I would take comparable loads to these yards. I would get to know the people that were working there, the yard managers, because it's not always necessarily just about who's offering you the best value, the best price. You want a yard that works with you, that is easy to work with, that you get to know the folks, because the more you go there, literally sometimes they will pay you more than other people because you are consistent and you're bringing in a consistent load or a larger load. And so there's a reason for them to pay you a little bit more. And there's nothing wrong with them doing that. The other thing that I explained to them was finding curbside material, same kind of thing. You research what the bulk pickup or the trash cycles are for the area that you're in. Make sure that it's legal to do that where you're at. And then just go exploring on those days and see what's out there. Pick it up. You eventually get to know the good neighborhood. Hey, Pooh's mate, great to see you here. The Watcher, great to see you. I don't recognize that name. So great to have you here. So eventually you find the neighborhoods that have the better scrap that's getting put out that you'll be going to, or you'll also know there are some neighborhoods I don't go to anymore because there's just so much competition. I mean, there are people that, the bulk pickup will be on Thursday, and there's people that start Wednesday afternoon driving around looking for stuff. It's a process that takes some time. Now, in some neighborhoods, you only have one scrapyard, or you got to drive a long distance to get to your scrapyard. It may be that it's really easy for you because you only got the one scrapyard and you just got to deal with them the best you can. It's an important question. I get questions like this worded differently, but the same kind of question periodically on my streams, on my videos. And I try really hard to help folks understand that there's nothing wrong with shopping around, getting to know the yards you're working with. And then if necessary, you can negotiate with them. If you're consistently bringing in, good material and a good load of material, then you have the option to negotiate with them. An example of this was that Gaylord box of green motherboards that I talked about over the last week or so. That was about 500 pounds of small socket green motherboards. It was a mix of plastic and metal because the yard that I was planning on taking it to in Atlanta, they just said, throw it all in one bin. We don't care. And when I had the Gaylord box ready to go and I started talking to them, they gave me a price, and it was $2.09 a pound. And it was roughly 500 pounds. And I wanted to go up and see them, right? And the sales guy he started getting a little bit weird about it. He's like, well, I'm actually in Texas, so I won't be able to meet you there, but I'll talk to the operations manager and maybe we can have somebody meet you there. And oh no, you won't be able to film there. I started just getting, it's like I started getting a weird feeling about it. So then I talked to a shipping company to find out what it would cost, because that's going to be a less than what here in the United States we call it less than truckload. You're not filling up an entire truck; it's just one pallet. I got a price for it. It was actually not that bad, $138. I was, hey, Urban, yeah, that's what I'm talking about right here now, man. I'm gonna talk about, that's what I'm talking about. The guys in Atlanta, they wanted to pay me $2.09 a pound for roughly 500 pounds of boards, but it was going to cost me $138 to ship it up there unless I took it up there myself. But I was just feeling kind of weird about this. So I called up my local yard that buys boards from me. Now their advertised price was $1.35 a pound. I called the e-waste buyer. I've met him many times. He and I have gotten to know each other. And this is where I go back to this comment about knowing your people at the scrapyard. I was just blunt with him. I just said, hey, look, man, here's the deal. Got a buyer in Atlanta. He's offering me $209, but I got to either pay the shipping or drive it up there myself. Can you come close enough to make it worth me selling it to you? So he didn't hesitate a minute. He said, yeah, I'll give you $2 a pound. Boom, done deal. $2 a pound. I don't have to go out of my way. This yard is 30 miles from the shark cage. So, there's $956, and all it cost me was, driving 30 miles with fuel. And I don't, that's what, a gallon and maybe 2 gallons or something like that. So, knowing your buyers can be very, very helpful. And don't be afraid to negotiate with your buyer if you have a large quantity of material. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to say, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Here's the price. It's a business transaction. So as long as you always treat it like a business transaction and you don't get disrespectful or yell or that kind of stuff, it's just a business transaction, right? So there you go. All right, let's catch up with some comments here real quick. Roger's saying he's got a lot of EA buyers around here too, very reserved, hesitant with answers. Yeah, there's still a lot of folks that tend to be kind of close hold. And that's one of the nice things about having boardsort.com as a very transparent, open source of what things, the price range that we ought to be getting, so that you have that. So you're armed, right? You're informed going in. Rafael, often keeping it straight and asking is the key. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Just ask, right? Be polite and ask. It's a business transaction, right? So, the Watcher, I've been in and out of your comments long. Oh, you know what? I do. I'm trying to think here. I don't recall seeing you up on the live stream before, so I apologize for that. But that could just be because I have a small brain and it's getting smaller every day. So my apologies. And I do want to touch on something that Cruiser Mac was talking about up here real quick. Where was it? Yeah, Cruiser Mac was talking about the payday loan people. Boy, howdy. Cruiser, I agree with you 100%. There are some serious loan sharks, no offense taken. The payday loan people, I don't know internationally if there's a similar kind of thing, but what they do is they say, yeah, we'll loan you this money when you get your paycheck, bring it in, you can use that to pay for the loan, but they charge you some outrageous percentage, 10, 12%, and then it compounded daily or something stupid like that. So, the next thing you know, you owe them 2 paychecks and 3 paychecks, and you never can quite seem to get it paid off. And so that can be a very ugly industry. And man, if anybody ever finds themselves in need of cash, do not use those sources for money, because you're just going to go down a sinkhole and never get back out again. So always use great caution when you're borrowing money from one of these places that say no credit needed, payday loan, here, just sign over your car to us and you'll get the, oh my God. All right, everybody. Well, we are 3 minutes into Scrapping Irish's live stream. So if you have autoplay enabled, you will be automatically taken over to Scrapping Irish's live stream when I shut this one down. So we will see you over there. If you do not have autoplay enabled, no problem. You'll either get a link that'll pop up, saying, hey, go here. If not, just go to Scrapping Irish, and we'll see you over on Scrapping Irish's live stream. Thank you all for joining me. I had a great time talking with you this week. And if there's anything that we didn't get discussed or answered, I'm sure that Scrapping Irish will be more than happy to let us keep talking about it over on his live stream when we get there. All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you over in Ireland.